Here's your shot at winning $1,000. Text the national keyword paper right now to 95819. That's PAPER to 95819. We'll text you back to confirm your entry. Data and messaging rates may apply. Please don't text and drive. It's 5K a day on WMAL. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:07. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in this Tuesday morning. We're 4 weeks away from Election Day in Virginia. And we're certainly covering the biggest stories coming out of that election, including, of course, the controversies that continue to swirl around Jay Jones, the Democrat nominee for Attorney General. And to that end, in 30 minutes, the Republican nominee, the current Attorney General, Jason Miyares, will join us. At 8:05, first son Eric Trump has a brand new book, Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save the Nation. And then at 8:35, Dinesh D'Souza. He's an analyst, commentator, filmmaker, and he's got a film out called The Dragon's Prophecy that centers on the October 7th massacre. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
A little Guns N' Roses. It's a good thing. Keeps you going. Go, Axe. Joining us right now is Jonathan Schanzer, friend of this program, executive director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. They've been the tip of the spear, honestly, here in America in terms of keeping the focus on who's really to blame for the October 7th atrocities and making sure that the justice ultimately is served, not just over in Israel and in the Gaza territories, but also here in America, to make sure that people learn, understand, and are completely unambiguous about the realities of that horrific event. And to that end, we speak with Jonathan Schanzer now. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning.
You know, at last hour, we talked about the October 7th massacre and how significant it was, how impactful it was, how devastating it was, and how it became, obviously, the tipping point of this latest conflict to make sure that Israel doesn't have to live in fear of Hamas at their borders ever again. And yet it was impossible to talk about this, Jonathan, without immediately reflecting on the fact that within days, people were calling for Hamas to win, to basically emerge victorious with their own state from the river to the sea, as if they were taking their side and rationalizing and justifying the attack. It was despicable and also sort of dumbfounding to witness. I'm still dumbfounded by it.
Yeah, I mean, it is dumbfounding, and I think what we've witnessed over the last 2 years is probably one of the most complex information operations probably ever deployed in the United States, maybe around the world. This is cognitive warfare, right? We were told within a day that Israel was committing genocide. That was before Israel even put a boot on the ground in Gaza, right? I mean, and then we saw the campuses erupt. We watched lawfare being waged at the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, again, before a single shot by Israel was fired. And then you begin to watch the media landscape shift. The social media was just a nonstop blitz for 2 years of lies and just, I mean, again, cognitive warfare is the word the term we've got to use here. I think Americans were under assault from day one, where they were trying to be told. And by the way, this wasn't just like mainstream media or even social media. We had boycotts by Hollywood. We had, major influencers come out and get involved in this when they had no business being involved in the first place.
Boycotting the victims of the attack. That's what's amazing.
That's right. That's right. And so, when we sort of step back at all of this, I think what's going to be really interesting, and we're going to start to look at this here at FTD, try to just begin to dissect what happened. Where were the epicenters of this messaging? I think a lot of it is actually coming out of this tiny microstate in the Persian Gulf called Qatar. They were both negotiating on behalf of the Israeli hostages while also sponsoring Hamas and spending huge amounts of money to influence the United States at the same time. I'd like to learn more about that in retrospect, but I don't think they're alone. I think this was a multifaceted, highly complex campaign. And unfortunately, I think this is the new normal. We're going to see it in Ukraine. We're going to see it in Taiwan. We're going to see it anywhere you have democracies under assault.
Well, Jonathan, it's really frightening also what's happening in the UK and what's happening in France. You have Jews who are leaving, they're fleeing is the better word, these countries because they no longer feel safe. And you mentioned the money. Is there an effort to investigate the American organizations? I mean, it's not just Soros. You mentioned Qatar that are getting this money to spread this misinformation. Is there an effort in Congress or an effort to shut down these organizations? I mean, these are dangerous organizations that are promoting terrorism. What is this? What's the status of investigating the money, the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, it's unclear, and it's really a terrific question. I mean, the Trump administration came in after, essentially, months and months of the Biden administration not doing anything to look into any of this. It was very frustrating. So Trump comes in and does what you want him to do, right? He announces this, they call it the 10-7 task force within the Department of Justice, where they're going to be looking into the bad guys. And there have been a couple of instances where authorities have shut down some of the worst actors. By the way, I mean, you had mentioned Jason Miyares, the Attorney General of Virginia. He's done an incredible investigation into a group called American Muslims for Palestine. They're based in Falls Church, and they have been one of the primary organizers of the campus chaos. And it's been really good to see Virginia at the tip of the spear there. But I want to see the Department of Justice dig into similar questions, similar issues, and to come up with answers, because I don't think we have yet seen the money trail exposed. I don't think we've seen people held to account for the blatant anti-Semitism, for the violence, for the destruction of property, for the manipulation, for the violation, by the way, of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. I'm sure there's multiple violations of that as individuals have taken money from foreign actors to promote a narrative that wasn't just wrong, it was immoral, and violations of American laws. So I think we've got a lot more to learn. I'm curious to hear from the Trump administration Justice Department. My understanding is we may hear from them in the coming days as we mark this 2-year anniversary of the October 7th atrocities.
We're speaking with Jonathan Schanzer, Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, on this, the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks. And can you just, I know that you've been in Israel quite a bit since the attacks. How is the resolve of the Israeli people? We hear mixed messages often that they're not supporting Prime Minister Netanyahu's offensive against Hamas, making sure that Hamas is eradicated, that he's losing support. You always hear this from our media here. But do the people in Israel recognize the threat that still looms there?
Well, I mean, look, I can just tell you this. I've been, 7 or 8 times now since the war began. My last time there was during that 12-day war with Iran. And, I was with 18 journalists, and we were hunkered down in a bunker for 5 or 6 days before we were able to get out. And I got to tell you, just speaking to Israelis as they're under fire, as these missiles the size of a bus are coming in and shearing off the sides of buildings, the Israeli people were unbelievably defiant. And I got to say, I was inspired by what I saw there. But there is exhaustion. They've been fighting for 2 years. And this goes against the doctrine of the military in Israel, right? They like short wars fought on the other guy's turf. This has been a long war fought on their own turf, and they're feeling it, right? And it's costing a huge amount of money. And the hostages, I mean, we need to just focus on them for just a minute. This has been the thing that has torn Israeli society apart, because they just wanted their hostages home. They all believed that Netanyahu would just be able to kind of wave a magic wand, make a deal, and get it all done. What I don't think we understood here in the U.S. is that Hamas, along with Iran, along with some of Hamas's other patrons, again, the Qataris, the Turks, they were waging psychological warfare on the Israelis this entire time. They knew that this was tearing Israel apart because these families were just, beside themselves, and they were waiting for somebody to do something. Turns out 2 years later, that somebody is Donald Trump. It looks like he's on the precipice now of potentially getting a deal done. He's using all of the leverage that he has. I got to say, It is surprising to me to see Donald Trump emerge as this sort of peacemaker. I think he's looking at, he's eyeing a Nobel Prize. Whether the Nobel Committee gives it to him or not, that's another question. But there is truly an effort right now by Donald Trump to finally put an end to this. And it's amazing. The hostage families, those who've been going after Bibi the entire time, have now actually just said that they want to see Donald Trump get a Nobel Prize.
Wow. Well, we'll watch that space. Jonathan Schanzer, thanks for joining us here on October 7th and helping us to sort of refocus on what this is really all about. Sadly, a conversation not heard on most college campuses today. Thanks, Jonathan.
My pleasure.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Your next $1,000 could be one text away. It's $5K a day on WMAL.
Hey, Julie, remember the Weekly Standard?
I do. Barely.
Weekly Standard. I enjoyed the Weekly Standard. I had respect for it. It was sort of set up as a conservative alternative to National Review. Great writers, great think pieces, founded by Bill Kristol and Fred Barnes, of course, Fox News regulars there all through the 90s and early aughts, as they say. And, Trump sort of broke everybody's brain over there.
Not everyone's. Not everyone's. There were a lot of good people hanging on.
There were a few good people hanging on. The majority of the people, I think, their minds were broken. The founder and owner, the owner, not the founder, but the owner of Weekly Standard at the end there, Phil Anschutz, he decided to disband the thing because it was losing money left over, hand over fist. And during the Trump era, they had no direction. They had nowhere to go because suddenly this guy, Phil Anschutz, had purchased this conservative magazine to promote conservative principles and ideas, and they found themselves... Yeah, it was at odds with the Trump administration all of a sudden, constantly.
And sort of at odds with conservatism just in order to spite Trump. It didn't matter. Whatever Trump did was wrong.
That's what we all suspected. Of course, the people there that were left there, Bill Kristol, Jonathan Last, Stephen Hayes, et cetera, they claimed that they were the real conservatives and they were holding on to these principles. Right. And it was you Trump people that have gone off the end. Well, when it disbanded, the people who worked there basically broke into two groups. The Steve Hayes group ended up founding a thing called the Dispatch with Jonah Goldberg, David French. Set them aside for a second. The others, Bill Kristol, Jonathan Last, Jim Swift, what was that guy who was the Wisconsin radio host who came and joined for a while?
Oh, Charles Sykes.
Charlie Sykes, thank you. He joined Weekly Standard right at the end. Then they formed a thing called the Bulwark. Ugh. And they brought in this other guy, Tim Miller. Tim Miller had been the communications director for the
Jeb Bush.
For Jeb Bush down in Florida, right?
Yes.
And he's sort of become the face of the Bulwark and the voice of the Bulwark. Tim Miller, who was openly gay and a nominally Republican, a Jeb Bush Republican, he's created this podcast YouTube platform for the Bulwark, and that's really where they're making a lot of money on these YouTube podcasts. And listen, that's a great business model. I know they're making money at the Bulwark, but these people at the Bulwark who openly root for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
This is Bill Kristol. This is, J.V. Last, Jonathan Last, as I said, Jim Swift, and Tim Miller. They still claim to be the real Republicans and conservatives. Now, I give you all of this, the principled ones. Yes. I give you all of this background to tell you that Tim Miller, who runs this podcast, he had a huge get this week. A major guest that's going to – you talk about conservative principles and, what the conservative – going back to Reagan and Goldwater. This is real conservatism.
Preserving the principles of conservatism.
That's why they call themselves the Bulwark. The Bulwark, the protector of the safety wall there. Yeah, here's Tim Miller with his big get, Jane Fonda.
Do you know that you're on this podcast? It's you and Bill Kristol? I bet that would have surprised you in the year 2007 for you and Bill Kristol to be back to back on a podcast.
No, I used to read. What was it called? The Weekly
Standard. Yeah.
Yeah, I religiously read the Weekly Standard.
Really? Religiously.
Yeah.
Why?
What was it called?
I wanted to know what they think.
Why?
You got to know that.
Well, you and Bill now, I mean, are basically aligned. I think on basically everything except the Iran bomb, and you and Bill Kristol are like probably.
We don't have to be. That's what I like about this committee of ours. We don't have to agree on anything else except our right to speak freely, to express ourselves.
Yeah. No. Stop for a second. So, did you heard what Tim Miller said there, which is incredibly enlightening? It's like you guys are basically aligned now. Now,
that's right.
So has Jane Fonda changed her politics? I don't think so.
I don't either, Larry. Yeah.
I think perhaps it was Bill Kristol who led the bulwark force into another direction. But that's something else. That's something to behold. The conservatism bulwark.
Yeah, and can we just take a moment to also how grotesque it is to have Jane Fonda, to celebrate Jane Fonda, who smeared American troops, who celebrated the Vietnamese troops against the American troops. It really is vile. I mean, Tim Miller should remember there's an awful lot of Vietnam vets and people of that generation that haven't forgotten what Jane Fonda did.
And by the way, those vets who love our military and loathe the fact that Jane Fonda literally joined the enemy while we had prisoners of war in captivity. You know what those people call themselves, those Americans who don't like Jane Fonda? They call themselves conservatives. Perhaps the folks at the Bulwark should look into it. It's by the way, and it's not a new Trump conservatism. It goes way back, guys.
Yeah.
Way back. It's 7:24.
Coming up, we'll talk to Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares. Keep it here, 7:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37, and coming up at 8:05, Eric Trump will join us. And at 8:35, Dinesh D'Souza, he's got a new film, Dragon's Prophecy. It's about the October 7th terror attacks, which we are recognizing and making note of today on the second anniversary. That's coming up, but we got to get right to it here. Julie Gunlock, are you ready? Are you buckled up? Are you strapped in?
I am all ready. I am.
Good, because we've got the Attorney General of Virginia, Jason Miyares, joining us now. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being here, sir.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me, Larry.
Well, I mean, where to start? Last time we spoke with you last week, we thought the worst thing Jay Jones could do was go 116 miles an hour on a interstate and then get a slap on the wrist where he did 500 hours community service to his own political action committee. By the way, now we've learned that the prosecutor never approved that as his sentence. But set all that aside, these latest revelations about the soul of Jay Jones, his inner thoughts, what he's willing to share with people in text message about his violent tendencies. This is beyond disconcerting. I'm disturbed to think that this man could be the Attorney General, Mr. Miyares.
Well, I mean, think about the context of these infamous text messages. He started texting a colleague, a fellow member of the General Assembly, because he was upset that Republicans had utilized and said kind words about a fellow Democrat that had recently deceased. He was upset at that. His reaction was that he would piss on the grave of his political opponents. That's a level of darkness. And then obviously the infamous, he'd want to put 2 bullets in the head of Todd Gilbert. But probably the most damning was when he was called out by Kerry Collier saying, listen, this is not appropriate. He didn't apologize then. He's going to have a moment of reflection, says, you know what, you're right. He doubled down, and it was after he was called out that he then said he wanted to see Todd's children, that he'd like to see Todd's children, who at the time were ages 2 and 5, die in their mother's arms to prove a political point. It is unfathomable to me that he would say that about a child. And listen, these weren't strangers. He's met Jennifer. Todd would bring his children to the General Assembly. We all know each other. I served in the Assembly with Jay and with Todd at the same time. It is simply unimaginable. Separate the politics. Can you imagine saying this about a wife and children that you've met and you've known? That is coming from a place I can't get my arms around. Yeah, it is really hard to get my arms around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are all disturbed by really dark stuff, and how you describe it, it's really effective. How you've described that he knows these people, it does add a layer of darkness there. But what fascinates me is the speeding, these violent, fantasies he has about killing people, but also he's also said that he fantasized sort of rhetoric about killing police officers. This would disqualify him from holding a position as a law enforcement officer, and yet he wants to be the top cop.
Yeah.
How is this even possible that he is still in the race when this kind of language he uses, he wouldn't be allowed to be a police officer?
Well, the Fraternal Order Police just came out last night, and they're not partisan. They represent Republicans, Democrats, and independent cops. They have come out and said that he needs to withdraw from the race, that language is solely unacceptable for someone. I mean, listen, what it tells me is, Jay Jones is applying to be the top prosecutor in the state. He's never been a prosecutor a day in his life. But what's worse, it's clear he has never actually met with victims. Yeah. Because I have met with mothers that have lost their children. And there's no cry like the cry of a mother that has lost her child, none. And when you meet with victims, and every time I met with a victim, I've never once asked them, are you a Republican? Are you a Democrat? Are you an independent? I've never asked them if they voted for me, whether they even like me. But my job as the Attorney General to be the people's protector, to protect all Virginians, regardless of what your political affiliation is. That's my job. I can't imagine that mindset that you want to piss on the grave of your political opponents, that you imagine children dying in the wife of a political opponent because, in his words, pain is the only way change occurs. Yeah. I just can't get my arms with the importance of this office, what you do in the public safety realm, having somebody that, one, is not qualified for this job, but B, has no respect to the men and women in law enforcement. To your point about him telling a colleague that he thought if cops died, they would change their behavior. Right. Listen, I've been to end-of-watch ceremonies with officers. I can't even fathom after you sit there and you're standing there with a casket rolling out with one of our law enforcement heroes that have died in the line of duty. I can't even imagine what that is. I mean, somebody like it's just it is hard for me to fathom with what I've seen and the pain I've seen, what happens when officers do die, to get my arms around that one either.
It's not the kind of thing that a responsible leader should say, let alone an attorney general, somebody responsible for enforcing the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's the kind of thing that an anonymous person says on Twitter. And also the basis to say, more cops need to die and then they'll stop shooting people. The foundation of that is to suggest that cops are going around willy-nilly shooting people, which is also untrue and despicable for those cops who will be under his watch. I got to ask you, though, Mr. Attorney General, you heard from Ms. Spanberger and from Ms. Hashmi. They're all saying the same thing. Oh, he needs to take accountability for this. In your eyes, because they won't say what accountability means. They won't actually finish that thought and say how Mr. Jones is going to take. With 4 weeks left in this election, how exactly can Jay Jones, from your perspective, how should he be fully accountable for this?
Listen, I think voters are going to hold him accountable. He has to decide and the Democratic Party has to decide whether he is going to stay in the race. Because on one hand,
do you think he should get out of the race? I'll just cut to the chase.
Ultimately, that is it. I think he has disqualified himself. I think that is a decision the Democratic Party has to make. But think about this: if Jay Jones was applying to be in Abigail Spanberger's cabinet, let's just say Secretary of Public Safety, and he was applying to be in her cabinet, and it came out in the process of his application that he had wished death on a political opponent, that he had fantasized about their children dying, that he had said to another colleague that indeed he thought cops should die. Would she hire him to be in her cabinet? No. Right. But she thinks she's still willing to vote for him to be the top prosecutor in the entire state. But think about this. Abigail Spanberger withheld her vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. She didn't like some policy decisions Nancy Pelosi did. But you're going to keep voting? You're planning on continuing to campaign and vote with somebody who has this mindset? I think it's a really a big inflection point for us as a country and really for Virginia. What kind of Virginia are we going to have? Because we talk about the Virginia way and trying to have more civility in our politics. Yes. Well, this really, I think that's on the ballot. Are we going to elevate somebody who has this kind of worldview towards people that he knows, to families that he has met. I think that is an inflection point for us as Virginia. It's a time of choosing. I know Virginians are going to choose well.
Jason Miyares running for Attorney General to retain that position that he's held for the last 4 years. It's jasonmiyares.com. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for joining us. 4 weeks left, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. You bet.
You can go to standwithjason.com. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Standwithjason.com. Even better. I like that one. Thank you, sir. Standwithjason.com.
God bless you, guys.
He makes a great point about, Spanberger withheld her vote for Pelosi. But that wasn't because of ideological. It was politics. It was just, I just want to win, and we're not winning with her. But think about this. Spanberger called for Ralph Northam to resign as governor when that picture of him from college came out wearing blackface or a Klan hood. That goes back decades. Yes. And it was a picture of him, dressed in an offensive way. And Spanberger says, that's it. He's got to resign his office.
That was bad.
But these text messages, 3 years ago, these text messages were, and she's like, well, Jason has to make up his own mind. I'll give you the answer. The same thing with Pelosi, the same thing with Northam, and the same thing now with Jay Jones. It's just craven politics.
That's right.
That's all she cares about. She stands for nothing else but the advancement of Abigail Spanberger and the Democrat Party. It's 7:45, WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. I wanted to get rid of the Attorney General before I went on that tirade because he's above that sort of thing.
Later this morning on the Chris Plante Show, 5 killed, 25 wounded in Chicago over the weekend. So the Democrat mayor declared much of the city to be an ice-free zone. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
That's the top single now out of Taylor Swift's new album, Life of a Showgirl. Sold 3 million so far. And good for her, because she's had a tough time of it lately. So it's nice to see her finally making some money. Oh, wait a second. She's a freaking mogul. Anyway, that song has a signature dance that's been choreographed for it for the video, and it has automatically, instantly become a viral sensation. Children are doing the Fate of Ophelia dance there. There's a Fate of Ophelia dance challenge out there on the video platform.
Have you done the Fate of Ophelia? Have you recorded yourself?
Oh, God, yes, of course. I'm nothing if not a showgirl. You know that.
Well, I like the sound of that tune. It doesn't sound bad. So fine. I haven't listened to it, but yeah.
She's not doing the halftime. So everybody was like, of course she's going to do the halftime show at the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, she's the darling of football.
You would think, right? Here, she was on Jimmy Fallon last night and addressed that, Cut 21.
You didn't turn down the Super Bowl because of performance footage?
No.
Okay.
And no. Well, here's the thing. Like Jay-Z has always been very good to me.
Yes.
Our teams are really close. It's like they sometimes will call and say, how does she feel about...
Yeah.
And that's not like an official offer or an official or like a conference room conversation.
It's just
like our teams are really close. How does she feel about it in general? And we're always able to tell him the truth, which is that I am in love with a guy who does that sport on that actual field. That is violent chess. That is gladiators without swords. That is dangerous. I am the whole season, I am locked in on what that man is doing on the field. Can you imagine if he's out there every single week, putting his life?
Enough with the likes. I'm getting done with it. But there you go. That's why she's not doing the Super Bowl, because she's so locked in on Jason Kelce and his playing the game.
I think
Travis
she's trying
Kelce.
to be respectful.
No.
Of
She's respectful of her future brother-in-law, Jason, not her actual fiance, Travis. I can't keep the Kelce straight.
Fair
They're all
enough.
Gigantic. So she can't focus on performing. That's what's going on.
Fair enough. It does seem a little incestuous for her to be doing that. So.
Also, and she mentioned Jay-Z. Jay-Z produces the halftime show, of course, which tells you why you're getting Bad Bunny instead. The other reason why apparently Taylor Swift is not doing the halftime show is apparently, this is a weird reason, but it would be too popular and too many people would be happy. And you can't have that, so we get Bad Bunny.
Goodness.
Anyway, go do your Ophelia. I think Julie and I and Patrice should do the viral Ophelia dance challenge.
I'll let you and Patrice do that on Friday. Okay? It seems like a Friday thing.
It does seem like a Friday thing.
She'll be much nicer about it, too.
I think it's more of a Sunday thing because we got to pray for a miracle before that's ever going to happen. 7:54.